Yeah, we're going to start off with the bad or really the sad, and that is a number of very good activists sadly passed away this year, and that's Jim Buckner. Jim was a great guy. He died. He was aged 86. He died in March. He died from COVID, and he and his wife Lillian, who died the previous year, were a force to be reckoned with in the animal rights movement in the UK. They campaigned on lots of issues. When the main thing was against live exports. Was some people might regard as a kind of welfareist thing, but they was pushed veganism as part of that. And Jim was involved in an attempt to rescue Rocky the dolphin from captivity way back in the 1980s. And one of the people that was involved with him was Barry Horn, who lost his life on hunger strike. To 2002, I think Barry died, and Jim was involved in that. They were sadly they're unsuccessful. They were arrested, and Jim, I think, ended up getting a suspended sentence. So he was kind of he was a kind of ALF activist as well.
It was a long term because Barry was on that, yeah, but Mel Broughton was on that, wasn't
Mel Broughton as well, yeah. So Jim was a great guy. There he is with his granddaughters. He's got he came from the USA, and he's got family in the USA, and he's got granddaughters in the USA. And after Lillian died, he went over to the USA to see his family, and there a picture of him with his granddaughters when he visited them over there. So that was a sad loss, and that was COVID. And really, although Jim, I think, was obviously very badly affected by Lillian's death, I think he would have gone on. He would have gone on for longer, had it not been for the virus.
Yeah. Did Jim's kind of story highlight that movement issue about whether we need to create vegans or whether we need to create activists who then become vegan, or do you know, as it were, in which order that happened for him? Do you know?
I think I think it was Lillian that got him into the the vegan thing and the activist thing. I don't really know which came first with him, whether he became vegan first or whether he became an activist first. But veganism was something that he kind of always promoted. I mean the live export movement actually did kind of create a lot of vegans, because a lot of non-vegans were involved in it, protesting at the ports, and they rubbed shoulders with vegans, and so the non-vegans became veganized. And I mean, for instance, that's how Kevin White, who's organised all those great vegan festivals, he got involved. He became vegan through the live exports movement.
So Kevin was down doing the live exports as a non-vegan at first, then, yeah.
I believe that was the case. Yeah, I think that's how he came to veganism.
Wow,
so that's another example of that kind of thing happened. And the next slide, this is on the left here. That's Eileen Clark. She's this was back in, I think, 2016, protest in London. I think against wild animals in captivity, and there she is with the actress Virginia McKenna. Eileen, I knew Eileen from way back. I used to speak to her on the phone every few months. She was still involved in sort of campaigning locally. She lived in Walthamstow in East London, and another victim of COVID. She was in her 80s. She had heart problems and died in hospital from COVID. But once again, she'd have gone on. She was involved in rescuing feral cats and that kind of thing. So once again, a long-term campaigner and another very sad loss to the movement.
Yes, indeed. And for people who don't know about Virginia McKenna, she made a name on Born Free, which was a true story about what, Joy Adamson, is that right? Joy Adamson?
I think it was. And I think she was I think she was then involved in the Born Free Foundation.
And Zoo Check maybe as well. There was one called. There was a group called Zoo Check, wasn't there?
Yeah, I think they may have been. May have been connected. I mean, that kind of goes way back. But Eileen was still campaigning just as recently out there. It's 2016, and she's sadly not with us now.
Yeah, so that's 2 COVID victims already.
Two COVID, and here's a third COVID victim, sadly, in May. On the right there's Dave Huff. I remember Dave when my early days in Hunt Sabs spent, and that was Sue on the left, his ex-wife, and they lived in Oxfordshire back in the day. And I spent many days round at their house. They had Hunt Sab meetings around there. The few of us used to go around. We'd go out sabbing. Dave was involved in ALF stuff. He served a prison sentence, and very very involved in various mainly anti-hunt stuff.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because again, we do have this issue in our movement that not a lot of people know much about the history and the people that went before, and we do seem to have this generational divide now, which is a bit interesting in the sense that some people kind of think the movement is kind of 10 years old or something, and of course we show for the first 3 slides that that's not the case. People have been doing stuff for many years, and
long time. David was in his 90s. He died in a care home. Of course, COVID hit the care homes really badly. They weren't given proper protection, and once again, he could have gone on for a few more years, David. It's very, very sad to hear about his death.
Yeah, it's another issue, isn't it, for the movement? Come on in, Rouge. I'm getting pestered by Rouge here. Come on in.
Normally I get pestered by cats, but they're not in here at the moment.
Yeah, it's another movement issue, isn't it? Care homes for vegans. So
I think there is an organisation that kind of certainly lists care homes that vegans or vegetarians can go to, and that's really important because, of course, you're kind of you're sort of at their mercy, aren't you? If you're in a care home, you haven't got family to kind of that share your views and that are on the case, then they're going to end up feeding you anything, aren't they? And you're not going to be able to really do anything. And so yeah, it's
it's a bad thing, really, isn't it? Yeah.
It's a human rights issue, isn't it, as well as animal rights. That's John Bryant. John. Oh, I knew John way back in the 70s. John, once again, a long-term campaign for animal rights. He was on the RSPCA council, the RSPCA board at one time. He was he worked for the League Against Cruel Sports. He did lots of stuff to do with protecting wildlife. He was a Hunt Sab at one time. My fondest memory of John was myself and a friend way back in the days of the Band of Mercy, which was the precursor to the ALF. We rescued some guinea pigs from a place in the middle of the night, and it was like a kind of we hadn't intended to. We'd intended to go to this place and cause damage, and their van wasn't there for some reason, so we got in and rescued these baby guinea pigs. And then we thought, what are we going to do with these guinea pigs? And we were not far from where John lived, which was kind of we were near Salisbury, I think, where this took place. John lived down that way, so we sort of phoned him up in the early hours of the morning. John, we got these guinea pigs, and he said, "Oh, bring them down round. I'll have them." And so we were on the way to John's. We got stopped by the police. And we had the guinea pigs up our jumpers, and they searched the car. And we were camping, and then kind of pitching camp, going and doing a raid, and then going to the next place. So we had camping equipment in the car, and we said, "Oh, we've been camping and the stuff." So they looked in the car, and they said, "All right, on your way." And in fact, his guinea pigs didn't move out too much. And we took them to.
You'll carry on talking, Ronnie. I've got a cat.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, I'll talk about guinea pigs. You sort out the cat. So John took these guinea pigs were blind. I think they'd been bred to be blind to do with experiments. And John took them in, and he looked after them for the rest of their lives. And that was kind of one of the early successes of the Band of Mercy / Animal Liberation Front, because as a result of that raid, the people who ran the place closed it down. They were so frightened that these this sort of animal liberation people knew about them, that they closed down the business. So just taking those guinea pigs had big repercussions. And John, that's kind of probably my fondest memory of John, that he was prepared to immediately.
So that was the same, wasn't it? With wasn't that the same with the first thing with the seal things in the wash? Didn't they stop that as well? Because they were
when we a couple of us went and we destroyed one boat that was used for seal hunting. We badly damaged the other, and as a result of that, it kind of never happened again. Every year, I think every June, there was this slaughter of baby seals up on the Wash in Lincolnshire, and it was local. These local kind of fishermen would kind of they were involved in it. It was like an extra income for them, and they'd go out in these sort of small fishing boats and then launch inflatable dinghies from the fishing boats, go on the sandbanks, shoot the baby seals, get their skins, sell the skins. And there were protests. So, there'd been protests going on for several years. Hunt Sabs had tried to disrupt it. And then the year we attacked the boats, it got called off. The government refused to give them a license, so it had to be licensed. And it's never happened since. And I think it's probably that just kind of what we did was probably like the final straw in terms of the aggro that was surrounding this killing the seals. And so they decided, right, we're not going to allow it anymore.
Controversial in the first place. One thing, again, for people interested in the history of the movement, this is John's book. I hope you can see that. I can't see my screen until I see it on this one. This is Fettered Kingdoms from 1982, and it's a really interesting book. It's got some great chapters in it. One about angling, which I suppose in 1982 was quite advanced, and he's got a little line. He says there are 3 prerequisites for angling: a hook, a line, and a stinker.
Yes, that's very, very good. I did have my disagreements with John. I mean, he was kind of very critical of the ALF or certain ALF actions. I think actions that cause damage, and I think maybe in Fettered Kingdoms, that's mentioned. So I didn't always agree with John, but I think that I very much respect his lifetime devoted to.
He went on to work for the League Against Cruel Sports, didn't he? And then became a wildlife free living being consultant, I think he was towards the end. Actually, another checkered thing about John Bryant, probably the worst thing about John Bryant, is he's responsible, instrumental even, in bringing Gary Francione into the movement, because Francione sought him out on the back of the publication of Fettered Kingdoms. And so, come on then, Rouge.
No, I wasn't aware of that at all. But yes, it's and he ran a rescue centre for some years down in Somerset as well. So Johnny was involved in all sorts of stuff. His whole life, really, from I don't know how young, from really quite a young age, devoted to campaigning for animals.
And John's situation wasn't that one wasn't related to COVID, is that right, Ronnie? Or do you know?
No, that he had bone cancer.
Oh wow!
Okay. Yeah. He was 77, I think. And this is something really sad happened earlier this year. Regan Russell.
Yeah.
And not the first time. Of course, remember Jill Phipps way back. Was it 95? Jill Phipps was killed outside Coventry Airport.
Coventry, yeah.
Protesting against the export of calves. They were flying calves out from Coventry to, I don't know whether they were going Holland, I think maybe, for the veal trade. And Jill was protesting, and she got run over by a lorry. Similar situation to Regan.
Yeah, with Regan, apparently there's a new film out, but it's supposed to be quite graphic, so I don't know much about it. But apparently there's a film about her death that's been released recently. Don't know much about it. Do know a couple of people who've seen it. I think there are some fairly upsetting scenes, I think. I'm not sure, though. Yeah.
But it's kind of one of those things that was sadly bound to happen. I think the same as Jill's death was probably bound to happen. If you've got lorries and, you've got people driving the lorries that don't like the protesters, and you know, it's kind of it's something that's gonna happen sooner or later, and very sadly it happened to Regan.